Alright, hello again everyone and welcome back to my kitchen. So today I am making some French onion stuffed pork loin, basically is what I'm going with. So I already have my onions sauteing here. If you've ever caramelized onions before, it takes a long time, so I got a head start on this so that this wasn't, an hour-long video of primarily sauteing onions. So basically I did start with like a tablespoon of butter. This is 2 yellow onions. Otherwise a little salt. I always do like a little soy sauce in there for some color, flavor. Lots of ground black pepper. I love fresh ground black pepper. And then at this point I have some beef broth here that I'm kind of making a little sauce reduction perhaps with, and just kind of pouring some in and letting it cook off. They still got a little ways that I would like them to soften up between kind of cooking off this beef broth, and then when they cook in the oven they should be perfect. So, but the nice thing is that I don't really have to watch this while I'm working on my tenderloin here. So went to Winco today and found a little pork tenderloin. It's a little more measly than I anticipated. I kind of wanted a fatter one. They had a sirloin, but it just really wasn't the right size, and so I went with this anyway, so hopefully it works out. If not, you probably won't be finishing this video because I would have messed it up, but we're gonna go with it. This is kind of a fun thing to do. I do like stuffing things just because it does flavor things from the inside out. And they look real fancy. It makes you look like you did some hard work and you got some skills when really it's not too terribly hard. So got my little pork loin here, and so basically you're gonna kind of cut it open like a book. You're gonna go straight down the middle, leave at least, this again isn't very thick, but we're gonna leave probably at least ½ an inch, 4 millimeters, something, not cut it all the way through. You kind of cut it down the middle, open it up, cut it again, open it up. So it's kind of like a quad fold basically, and then we're going to put everything inside, roll it up like a ho-ho, stick some toothpicks in it, put it back in this pan that my onions are cooking in, and also I have some diced potato and some cauliflower here, so everything's going to cook at the same time in the same pan. So technically this is a one-pan dinner, isn't that cool? So here we go, going to cut down the middle here, trying to find which side is going to be nicest to me. So again, this is a little bit easier when you got a fatter piece, but this might actually work out nicely because it's probably going to roll up pretty good. So get yourself a really nice sharp knife and just kind of start cutting down the middle. Like I said, just leave a little bit on the bottom. It doesn't have to be directly down the middle. You can kind of zigzag, like right here there was a piece that just kind of decided to go rogue on me. I'm going to cut off this chunk of fat here because that's gross. And then keep cutting. Obviously, if I feel the knife getting anywhere near my hand, I stop cutting, so don't cut yourself. That's not any fun. You're not going to keep cooking if you're hurting yourself. So there you go. Nice little cut down the middle. The sides are still pretty thick. And so you do the same thing, kind of like I did with the chicken. You just cut it this ways. If it was a fatter piece, you'd really be able to see how you can cut it again without being as surgical with this process, but we're gonna go with it. All right, so my onions are looking pretty good here. Gonna need a little bit more beef broth. I don't normally get this size of a container of beef broth, but tomorrow I'm working later, so I always plan ahead, and I'm having crock pot stroganoff. So I've got a little London broil I'm going to throw in the crock pot with the rest of whatever beef broth in here, more than likely, that I don't use for this meal. Cook it all day long. It's going to fall apart. Add a little mushroom soup, serve it over some egg noodles, and dinner is done. So my husband can kind of finish it off when he gets home, and then by the time I get home, dinner is done, which is always wonderful. Toss this. Voila. Okay, I'm gonna go for the other side here. I thought this would be a little bit more visual, but kind of just how this size of meat goes. But we're gonna make it work. Still gonna be fun. When I first met my husband, I made him and his family this. I think it was for Christmas or something, because he was just having a small Christmas get together, and I put like tomatoes in this, some spinach, some feta, kind of did like an Italian style. Come to find out, they don't like pork, they don't like feta, so kind of failed, but that's okay. So you can take this and do like some plastic wrap on top and beat it out with a mallet. I've done that before, and I overdo it. I guess I have too much aggression on my pork loin, and it kind of just falls apart. And so instead, what I usually do is whenever I find like a little fat, like a thick piece, I just do another line into it, and then it kind of opens up. So this will eventually kind of look, just do a bunch of little cuts. And not only does that give you some more surface to season, it helps when you're going to roll it up, helps you cook more evenly in the oven here. So I like that. You could probably do some this way, but I won't get too carried away here. Hopefully it all works out in the end. So I'm gonna let this cook off a tiny bit more so I can actually load it into here. So again, it's going to all come back into this pan, but for now, I'm going to do some more pepper on here. Just season this up. I'm not gonna put any salt in here because the filling's going to be salty enough. But I do have some garlic powder I'm gonna throw on here, because why not? Everything's better with garlic. So after I put my onions on, I do have some Gruyere cheese, because that's what they use on French onion soup. And so I tried to make it relatively traditional, I suppose, so it still has some sort of theme here, basically, with the whole French onion thing. And I found that at Winco too, surprisingly. It took me a minute because they have a big variety of kind of the more specialty type cheeses. I didn't realize Gruyere was so hard to find until I started looking for it. And I don't know if I've ever really had it on anything other than French onion soup, but it is one of my favorites, so why not? Let's try her out. So, still pretty juicy here. I did a little overboard on the last time I poured it in because it was looking a little dry, but basically going to scoop it out and mostly do it evenly. I usually take a little lip here that I don't put stuff on because that's going to be the first fold, so you're just going to double up on that part, so not really any point in filling it up too much, or else you're going to have a big lump of stuff in the middle. But you can't really mess this up too much as long as it stays together. So you can use some kitchen twine, or you can use some toothpicks. I had some skewers in there I was going to use if I couldn't find my toothpicks, but thankfully they were where I left them. So just going to finish putting these on here. And I'm not going to put all of my onions because I'm going to mix this the rest of this kind of sauce basically that's made, and the onions along with the potatoes and the cauliflower, just to season that up, you know, with the rest of the meal, so I don't really have to fiddle with that too much. So a little bit more. This is where I really want this to be. Okay, so the rest of this I'm going to kind of divvy up to each side of my cast iron here so that I can mix the rest of this in and then put my pork loin here once it's done. So, a little block of Gruyere, I shredded it up with my handy dandy grater there. It's got all sorts of sizes, but we went with the biggest one. So just kind of sprinkle it in. You don't want to do too much, because if you have it too cheesy, it will all just cook out the sides. But this is enough. It's got enough binder in here to hopefully make it just nice and yummy. And then when it's done cooking, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on top as well, and there should be some juices in the pan, so baste it and then sprinkle some cheese on top so it's nice and bubbly and really looks like that French onion soup top. A little bit more on this side here. So alright, that looks good. Moment of truth here, guys. Let's fold it over. Let's see if my meat was big enough to not mess this up. I'm gonna fold this in a little bit. Dun, 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 dun. Alright. I'm gonna be alright here. Okay. I think I don't use toothpicks very often. Okay. So basically I'm kind of just skewering the openings here straight through just so that it doesn't unravel, gives it a little bit. Fastening it in here. Probably would be easier with a little twine, but this is also what I do when I do it with chicken breasts. I kind of cut a little pocket into it. Maybe I'll make one of those videos eventually. And then just gonna kind of bun this end up here. The trick is to take out the toothpicks before you cut and serve. So as you can see, you got nice little Halloween looking pork loin here. And then you want to cook it like open side down, whatever the roll side is, on the down side, so that it does completely seal as you cook it. So voila, look at that. And then you'll see once it's done cooking and you cut into it, you got this nice little rolls that should happen. We're getting a little sear on the bottom here, which is cool. Let's do a little more pepper on top. Okay, so I'll do a little bit more of the broth in here so it stays nice and moist. Again, pork has the ability to dry out sometimes, unfortunately, so the more moisture you have around it, the better. This isn't a really fatty piece of meat, so I'm not worried about the fat cooking into the pan and everything else because there's very minimal amount. Should just make it extra tasty. So I'm going to do half the potatoes over here. On this side, and same with the cauliflower. So when it comes to kind of being able to do one pan things like this or sheet pan type dinners, it's about having your vegetables and stuff at the same cooking rate. So I cut up the potatoes about the same size as the cauliflower. They're both very hearty kind of vegetables and starches here. So they should all cook about the same time. I'm going to put this whole thing in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. Take a look at it. I was going to run right by Bed Bath today and grab my meat thermometer, but I didn't have time. So we're just going to have to wing it again, but my chicken turned out perfect without one. So hopefully this does too. And pork's a little more forgiving than chicken anyways, but I'm gonna just do one more drizzle on top. And then I'll probably stir this up as it cooks as well, just so that everything gets all nice and roasty. This is just a little more garlic powder, a little more pepper. And there you go. This was a little bit more, entailed than I would normally do during the week. This is what I call a Sunday dinner typically. Something that's a little more time intensive because it's a little bit more prep and stuff. But, again, something fun, something different. Gives your family something different to look forward to. Try new things. So, but remember, this whole pan is very hot, so you don't want to touch it. You want to make sure to use your mitts here. I've got my oven set to 425 this time, and it all goes in. And there you go. So, but one of my favorite things to do is, talk with our clients about what to make, what their likes are, what would they enjoy putting together or looking forward to eating at the end of the day kind of thing. So, but again, a lot of times it's just getting inspiration from things that you like, things that you've eaten in a restaurant or something like that. That's usually where I find mine. I like to go to restaurants and order things that I can't make at home or that I don't want to make at home typically. So inspiration can be found anywhere. And yeah, so keep on cooking. It is fun. You can make it the way you want it. You can, have it taste as good as you're going to make it. And it doesn't have to be, terribly difficult or, yeah. So hope to see everyone in the studio soon. And enjoy the rest of your day.